where we begin tonight, is in the middle of the 8.8 magnitude earthquake that hit 6 weeks ago in Chile, the biggest earthquake anywhere in the world in 50 years. What we did not know at the time of that quake was that in the middle of that giant quake, there was a team of American officials inside that country, inside Chile, on a top secret mission to save the world from nuclear disaster. It sounds melodramatic, right? It's actually not an exaggeration. In the days before that earthquake hit, a team of U.S. officials were in Chile on a mission to secure 40 pounds of radioactive, highly enriched uranium. They were to obtain it, secure it, and transfer it safely to the United States, all in secret. This 40 pounds of highly enriched uranium was being stored at 2 facilities. Now, 40 pounds of this stuff is considered to be enough to destroy part of a major city if it were detonated, which would not be the hardest thing in the world to do. So you obviously can't just pick this stuff up, throw it in a suitcase, and hop on a plane back to the United States. U.S. and Chilean officials had to extract the uranium racks from these ionized pools they were stored in. They then transferred them into specially designed casks. The casks were lined with 8 inches of lead and steel to keep the uranium safe in transit. 60 tons of metal were used to secure just 40 pounds of uranium. Package and handle this stuff the wrong way, and you can set off a spontaneous nuclear chain reaction. Time magazine reports it was only 12 hours after the team got the uranium into those casks and surrounded it with 1,500-pound protective impact limiters. Just 12 hours after that, the giant 8.8 impact, aka earthquake, hit. Well packed for shipping, the uranium was safe in the quake. If there had been a spontaneous nuclear chain reaction, you probably would have heard about it by now. But the earthquake did render totally unusable the port that these scientists were going to use to ship out this secret nuclear cargo. After a recon mission that involved the head of the Chilean nuclear agency personally driving himself to one uranium site to check on its safety, the scientists worked through the night to find a new escape route. They decided to use a port 50 miles to the north of the one they had initially planned. Cue a dark of night convoy to the new port through an earthquake-ravaged countryside with no electricity and a desperate attempt to get this uranium out of the country safely. Again, all while keeping it secret. Despite major aftershocks, the uranium made it to the new port safely. But then, more drama. One of the cranes that was being used, look at this, one of the cranes being used to hoist this unstable, highly radioactive material onto the American ship malfunctioned, sent the container swinging, flying out of control just yards above the deck. Ultimately, they regained control, and the uranium was loaded onto 2 specially outfitted double-hulled American ships. They put it on 2 ships so they would have split the material, so neither of the ships would be carrying enough highly enriched uranium to make a bomb. The ships then embarked on a 2.5-week Coast Guard escorted journey to the United States, including an ulcer-inducing trip through the Panama Canal. Their ultimate destination, South Carolina, where the uranium is painstakingly converted to safer, non-weapons grade fuel. With the moratorium ending on telling the story of Chile's uranium in the earthquake, today in Washington, leaders of 47 countries gathered for the biggest summit in the United States in more than 6 decades. It's a 2-day gathering aimed at addressing the issue of global nuclear security. And right at the beginning of day 1 of this summit, some results to be announced.
Today, Ukraine announced a landmark decision to get rid of all of its stockpile of highly enriched uranium by the time of the next nuclear security summit in 2012.
Ukraine will eliminate its entire stockpile of highly enriched uranium. After Press Secretary Robert Gibbs made that announcement, President Obama and the Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych released a joint statement which reads, quote, President Yanukovych announced Ukraine's decision to get rid of all of its stocks of highly enriched uranium, while the United States will provide necessary technical and financial assistance to support this effort. Sound familiar? The United States will provide technical and financial assistance to support this effort. Hopefully this time minus the earthquakes. There's actually no guarantee that, like Chile, Ukraine is going to send us their highly enriched uranium, but it's absolutely not out of the realm of possibility. The United States is doing this sort of thing because we want to secure all the dangerous, highly enriched uranium that's out there in the world. So far, some other countries are interested in letting us take it off their hands, because having hundreds of pounds of weapons-grade uranium just lying around not only presents a risk of that stuff accidentally detonating, it also could fall into the wrong hands. And keeping it from falling into the wrong hands costs a lot of money in terms of securing that material. The head of the Chilean nuclear agency told the Associated Press, quote, "We are happy to see it go. Countries normally don't want to be loaded with waste from other countries, but to put it in a safe place is valuable for everybody." The Bush-Cheney administration did expand U.S. efforts to lock down loose nuclear material, but the Obama-Biden administration has put those efforts into overdrive. The president making this very ambitious pledge last year.
Today I am announcing a new international effort to secure all vulnerable nuclear material around the world within 4 years. We will set new standards, expand our cooperation with Russia, pursue new partnerships to lock down these sensitive materials.
He set that 4-year clock running a year ago. That means we've got 3 years to go to lock it all down worldwide. The reason this is now a priority for the United States is because of the very real threat that this stuff can be stolen and used in some sort of nuclear-armed act of terrorism. So taking highly enriched uranium from other countries helps eliminate the chance that this stuff will fall into the wrong hands. And to the extent that there is a black market for this stuff, it reduces the supply of it, so that even if there is a black market in it, at least that black market will be very expensive. This is a dangerous mission, but the United States is taking the lead role on it. President Obama holding summits like today's to cajole countries who have it, and he's proposing a 67% increase in the budget of the agency that goes on these cloak and dagger earthquake dodging missions to get it. Everybody thought that health reform was going to be President Obama's lasting presidential legacy. Health reform, I'd like to introduce you to your very dramatic international match. Joining us now is Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Ron Suskind. He's author of the book, The Way of the World, A Story of Truth and Hope in an Age of Extremism. Ron, it's great to see you back here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Nice to be back.
Are we able to safely take care of this stuff once it's brought back to the United States? Do we have the technical know-how to take care of it?
Yeah, I actually think we do. I mean, this plan of getting uranium or plutonium from around the world and saying, look, we can house it safely here, we're a safe repository, we'll take it off your hands, is actually something of a new sort of concept to deal with this really impenetrable issue of what to do in a world that is really awash with enriched uranium and plutonium. It's a real problem for humanity.
How did countries like Chile and Ukraine get this stuff in the first place?
Well, you know, they get it different ways. Some of them have nuclear facilities, reactors. Of course, it's used as fuel to drive those reactors. In the case of Ukraine, apparently some of these, the uranium was in weapons that were once housed in the Ukraine, Soviet weapons that then were sent back to Russia. You know, there's lots of ways that countries end up with this stuff in their hands. But I think what you find when you go around the world, that all of them deep down are saying, you know, I don't think it's really safe here. You deal in this issue, Rachel, with the sort of fine line between will and capability. There are many countries that say, look, we have the will to wrap this stuff up, to protect it, but do they have the capability? If, let's say, a well-armed terrorist group finds a lightly guarded store of highly enriched uranium, well, the fact is a review of the world and the world black markets and above-board markets where the uranium is sitting shows that much of the uranium around the world is very loosely guarded, and that is an enormous threat. That's why the Obama administration has really stepped up, and to be sure, they've gone beyond the Bush administration quite dramatically.
Ron, I know that you've done a lot of reporting on the black market in this area. When President Obama said that al-Qaeda not only wants nuclear material, they would not be hesitant to use it, the implication is that the black market is where they would be trying to get it. Is he right? Is there good evidence that they are seeking this sort of material to use as a weapon?
There is no doubt that al-Qaeda is seeking highly enriched uranium and fissile plutonium as well. I think that's even more of a threat to do exactly the improvised nuclear device that the world fears, that everybody fears. You know, there have been more than 36 incidents, significant black market incidents in the last decade, and frankly, many of them are coming through Russia, South Ossetia. That's where actually the pressure point of many of the problems are. There's a lot of highly enriched uranium floating around found in that part of the world. And the fact is, I think most people say if it comes from anywhere, it'll probably come from there.
Is there a qualitative difference between what President Obama and his administration is doing on this subject and what the Bush-Cheney administration did? We know that quantitatively they're doing more. The president even now asking for a fairly large increase in the budget to do this sort of these sorts of projects. But is there a difference in the quality of the approach, the type of the approach, the types of resources being brought to bear on this problem?
Yeah, there's no doubt. You know, they brought up resources. In a way, what they've done here, the Obama administration, they brought it out into sunlight. They say, look, we know people are afraid. They have a right to be afraid. We are too. We need to work together in a kind of shared purpose in concert because this is a problem for all states. Remember, the real threat are the non-state actors, the terror networks. In a way, they're a challenge to all state-based power and to the long-standing issue of force and diplomacy that states work together or against one another. What you've got here, the new entrant into this disastrous situation, are the non-state actors. We probably in our lifetime, unless